Parasha Mishpatim, this parasha has many mitzvot, many commandments. And it's not possible for us to go through all of them. Nevertheless, we'll go through the highlights of the parasha. As you know, in the Torah there are several types of mitzvot, commandments. There are those that are Mishpatim, ben adam lechavero, between man and his friend. One needs to know how to conduct himself. There must be a system of justice, which is, by the way, one of the 7 Noahide laws to govern their people. So that is what Mishpatim are all about. Commandments that deal with ben adam lechavero, between man and his fellow Jew. There are hukim, decrees, like brit milah, circumcision, kashrut, the laws, the dietary laws, family purity laws. There are hukim, decrees, which are not necessarily so easily understood. They are called hukim, they are decrees. Then we have mitzvot that are in the category of edut. They are a testimony, like Shabbat and the holidays. They come to remind us something from the past. But there are quite a few mishpatim, and they are very important. Each mitzvah, each mishpat is not only common sense, it also contains a lot of other ideas that the Torah intended to imbue, in other words, to instill in our nature. As the rabbis tell us, שהפעולות נמשכות, or is it the other way around? שהלבבות נמשכות אחרי הפעולות, that one's heart is influenced by one's actions. So the many mitzvot that require a certain action to be taken affect us one way or another. So it's not just a common sense mitzvah. There's a lot in the mitzvah that we're unaware of, and in many ways it affects us. So let's begin with the very first one, and that is ve'ele mishpatim asher tasim lifnehem. We're being told that these are the mishpatim that you should put before them. What does it mean to put before them? So the rabbis explain that Moshe was told to clarify, not just to teach, but to clarify the mishpatim, that they should be understood by everybody. That is a simple meaning over here. The deeper meaning, which is what is inferred from all of this, is asher tasim lifnehem. We are told that it is important for us to settle all matters of disagreements, fights that we may have with another Jew in a Jewish court. Asher tasim lifnehem v'lo lifnei arkaot shel goyim. If you have a disagreement, there's some dispute, you go to a Jewish court, you go to a Beit Din, you go to 3 rabbis, you settle it amongst Jews, you don't settle it amongst goyim. What's the reason for this? Even though it's a mitzvah, there's a reason. Simple explanation is that their system is different than our system. What they will decide will not necessarily be correct based on what the Torah would say in such a case. Simple. Don't you want to have the truth? Don't you want to have justice served according to the Torah? So you go before a Beit Din. Depending, of course, what the issue is, a Beit Din can consist of businessmen. They don't have to be rabbis. Knowledgeable businessmen, if it's a business issue, they can decide. They're unbiased, they're not related to you. You get to choose one, he gets to choose one, and the two of them chooses a third one to arbitrate the matter. So if this is done amongst Jews, it's perfectly fine. If it's a more difficult matter, then of course it's taken to a Beit Din, taken to a rabbi to decide the issue, but not before goyim. Another reason why we don't want to take our laws, our problems to the goyim, is because it's a chilul Hashem. Whenever a Jew goes to a goy, whenever he goes to a non-Jewish court, he's giving kavod to the non-Jewish system of law, or to that system of laws. So it's a form of chilul Hashem. It's a desecration of God's name. Don't we have our own laws? Why do you have to go seek the advice or the assistance of the goyim? So it is forbidden, according to the halakha, for a Jew or for the 2 Jews to settle their case in a non-Jewish court. Now, let's say Reuven sues Shimon, and he says, you know what, I'm going to take you to Beit Din. Shimon says, I'm not going to Beit Din. Unfortunately, Beit Din today does not have the same authority that it had in the past to enforce matters, to put somebody in herem. Nobody buy at his store, nobody does business, he doesn't get an aliyah. In the past, the communities would have much more power. Today, because we don't have that much power, it may be necessary, in some cases, as a last resort, to take the individual to court. So the court is still a viable way to settle certain matters, but only as a last resort. If you tried everything, attempted to take him to Beit Din, and he didn't listen. He doesn't want to. He doesn't obey the court. Or he went to Beit Din, but he doesn't fulfill, abide by what the rabbi told him to do. How are you going to enforce it? In that case, it is permissible to go to court.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
given this admonition not to go in front of the goyim, can we assume that here's Moshe talking in front of the Jews in the desert right after they left Egypt, that this is how they did act while they were in Egypt? When there was a dispute, even though they were slaves, they presented themselves before an Egyptian judge?
Oh, never. They never did.
So then
they settled matters amongst themselves.
Okay, so then why the warning not to go before non-Jews? Because they were isolated out in the desert.
This is a warning because there are individuals who don't respect the law, right? At all times and in all communities, there might be individuals who might feel that they're above the law. And they may do things that are not proper, that are not according to the Torah. So we need to have a mitzvah commandment telling us that how serious this is. Don't think that you can get away with it by going to a non-Jewish court because they might side with you, or because they will be sympathetic to your case much more than the rabbis. Somebody might be tempted. He knows that he will lose. That would be an example, a typical example. He knows he would lose in a court of Torah. Yeah, sure. Future generations that where we may not have the same power. We need to remember that this is a Hilul Hashem. That we do not show kavod and respect by going to their courts. When we have our own courts, we have Baruch Hashem Shulchan Aruch, we have our own system of laws. All right, the next mitzvah is a very significant mitzvah that was more applicable during the time that we had the Hamikdash, the Yovel. That was the mitzvah of Eved Knaani, a Jewish slave. It's important to stress that Judaism does not believe in slavery. Typically, what we mean by slavery is to enslave somebody against his will, like many white men did to Africans. They took them against their will. That is against the spirit of the Torah. The Torah does not believe in taking somebody's rights away just like that. But there are two situations where one steps down in his status. In other words, by becoming a slave of sorts, he's in a lower status, and that is an Eved Ivri. There are two types of Avadim in the Torah. You will find an Eved Ivri and an Eved Knaani. Eved Knaani is a non-Jewish slave who becomes a slave or servant, however you want to call him, by a Jew, and he is mechuyab. He's obligated to do certain mitzvot. So he's almost semi-Jewish. He has the option to convert too. Eretz Israel would not tolerate any avodah zarah, any idol worshippers or any idols. So anybody who would want to inhabit in that, to live in that land, would have to take upon himself, accept the 7 Noachide law, 7 mitzvot b'nei Noach, which the Eved Knaani would add additional mitzvot. It would be almost equivalent to the mitzvot that a woman is obligated. Not the full Taryag, 613 mitzvot, but a few additional mitzvot. More than just a plain ger toshav, as the Torah would call an inhabitant of the land, who all he needs to do to have what we would call citizenship or granted the permission to stay is fulfillment of the 7 Noachide laws. And Eved Knaani, because he's already part of the Jewish family, in a sense, he's working for a Jew, assumes certain mitzvot. An Eved Ivri is a regular Jew, just like any other Jew. But what happened to him? Either one or two things. Either he cheated somebody out of money, stole money, owes somebody money. Regardless, he's in debt, and he can't pay it back. And obviously, the way he became in debt was through something which is not proper. It's not just that he took a loan and he can't pay it back. He took the money illegally. So we believe in a system that finds us an immediate solution as quick as possible, and the way to repay the man whose money was taken is by selling this Eved into slavery, into servitude, taking that money and paying the individual whose money was taken. What good would it do if this man sits in prison, eating 3 meals a day, living off the taxpayer's money? Right? What good is it? You will almost not find any prison sentence in the Torah. Kings, of course, put people away in a dungeon and places like that who were a threat, but it was very, very temporary. That's not a solution. Israel today does not follow the Torah, unfortunately, right? The system of laws there is a mixture of English and Turkish laws, not Jewish laws. It's a mixture of Turkish and English laws, yeah. Because the Turks were in control of Eretz Yisrael before the English, and some of those laws were inherited or continued to be, used later on. Definitely not the laws of the Torah. So that is one type of an eved that is sold b'gnevato because of what the money he stole. The money needs to be repaid. That solves this part of the problem. And another type of eved ivri is one who has no money, can't make a living, and he sells himself into servitude. I'll work for you. What is that?
She sold himself.
To take care of me, feed me.
Uh-oh.
That kind of a thing. Not necessarily money that's him. Or for money too, of course, and the money goes to his family or whatever. There's a few differences between an eved ivri that is sold by Bet Din because he stole money, or one that sells himself. The basic difference is that an eved ivri who's being sold as a result of having stolen the money, his maximum sentence or assignment of an eved ivri is for 6 years. After the 6 years, he needs to go free. He has that. If he chooses to stay, obviously he's allowed to. And that is when the Torah prescribes perforating his ear next to the doorpost, right? But he has the option to leave after 6 years. An eved that sells himself, a Jew who sells himself, he sells himself for as many years as he wants to. A few differences. An eved ivri, a regular eved ivri who's sold, is given a shifcha kna'anit, a non-Jewish woman, that she can bear children for him. Those children are slaves and belong to the master. So the master has some profit, some benefit from having an eved ivri, this type of an eved ivri who's being sold by Bet Din, that if this man's new wife, the non-Jewish woman, bears him children, those children belong to the master. Only an eved ivri, right. The Torah does not encourage that, of course, and that is why they want him to leave after 6 years and leave everything behind. He can only do this if he's already married. Only if he's already married. Otherwise, you'd have a lot of single people jumping at this. Okay, I can get a shifcha kna'anit, right? Can I choose my color too? No, he's married, so he has his feelings, he has his kids, he has his home. But he's being forced into a situation where the kids that are born will be the master. Will be his master.
Here or inside?
Well, at the bottom.
Here.
Not inside. Yeah.
Oh, not the.
No, of course not. Yeah. What is that? This man is Jewish. We're talking about a Jewish man, a Jewish individual.
Marrying a non-Jew?
He's marrying a shifcha kna'anit.
He's forced.
Yeah. She's going to bear his children, and these children are going to be slaves. They're going to belong to the master. This is a temporary situation. Remember, shifcha kna'anit is not an ordinary goya from the street. She's assuming certain mitzvot. She's in halfway of becoming a Jewess herself, if she chooses to convert, fully convert. She's not yet fully converted. No, right, because this is not a regular marriage. So that is an unusual situation where no, it is being done according to the instructions of the Torah. The Torah permits the shifcha kna'anit in this kind of a situation. Otherwise, you can't do it on your own. But in this case, where he is being sold against his will into becoming an eved ivri, his master is allowed to give him shifcha kna'anit, and the children will belong to the master.
The one who sold himself.
No, of course not. That applies only in this particular situation. There are halachot in eved ivri. Sure, there are quite a few halachot, and we'll talk a little bit about them. Not all of them, but. One of the halachot, for example, is that the master needs to treat him well. He's not a regular slave. He's not an eved kna'anit. He's an eved ivri. He's a Jew, just like you. He's just in an unfortunate situation that he had to be sold to repay the money that he took. You can't mistreat him. On the contrary, you have to respect him and take care of him very well. So let me briefly go over a little bit some of the points that I mentioned, I think, 2 weeks ago on Shabbat, about what's going on over here for those who weren't here. It's very interesting what the background of this eved ivri is. How does it happen? The Torah, remember, reveals to us a lot of information in the Pesukim, including the source of the problem of the Eved Ivri. How did it come that he is now working for others? How did it happen that he came down from wherever he was before, comfortable livelihood, to a situation where he owes people money, he has to work for others? What happened to him? What did he do wrong? So we explained that there is a smichut, there is a connection between the parasha before and this parasha. There's a smichut. The last commandment in Parashat Yitro was lo lahmod, not to covet, not to desire other people's possessions. This Eved, the way it happened to him, the way he became an Eved, is because he coveted. He wanted something that does not belong to him. So what? Well, the problem is, some people covet, and some people, as a result of their desires, go take the next step and steal and take what does not belong to them. Torah tells us that if a person is homed, if he covets, he is capable of being over al kol Torah kula. That is how serious coveting is, lo tahmod. Because he covets, if he cannot get what he wants, he will steal it. If he's caught stealing, he might kill. If they take him to court for killing, he might swear falsely. You see how all the aseret dibrot, as a result, will be transgressed as a result of lo tahmod, covering. So that's the connection here. He became an Eved because he coveted. He began to steal, and as a result of stealing and not being able to repay, he was sold as an Eved. But there's something else here. He's treated nicely. He's treated as a human being. He's taken care of. He can't be overworked. Really, everything is being done. You would never, it's so nice that you would never know he's an Eved. That is what the rabbis tell us. Whoever buys a Jewish servant, it's like he's buying a master to himself, because he's working for him. That's the way it comes out. It looks like that, at least. So why is it this way? So we explained, because when an individual steals, when Reuven steals from Shimon, two things happen that are not good. One is he transgressed the sin of lo tahmod, taking something that belongs to someone else. But there's something even more serious than that. He was not sensitive to the pain of Shimon. What about that? Shimon does not have $1,000 or whatever it was that he stole from him, right? He lost something that was valuable to him. So he therefore caused a tremendous amount of pain to Shimon. This shows a lack of sensitivity to others. That is why we perforate his ear. When you perforate the ear, it says, Rashi brings it down, the rabbis tell us, it's in order to remind him that in Har Sinai, this ear heard lo tignob, ve'alach ve'ganav, right? Later on, when it says v'chiyamuch achicha, when your brother becomes poor and he sells himself, over there the ear is perforated. For what reason? Because it says that the ear heard hili avadayim. The Jews are servants to me, not to others. So he's making himself a servant or a slave to another servant or slave. That is not proper. Regardless, these are the reasons of why the ear is perforated. Here he's being treated so nicely to teach him sensitivity, to teach him to be kind, to be respectful of other people's possessions. So this whole process of being sold, of being taken care of for 6 years, even though he has to work, is also training. Is also training for him to learn to become a decent person. As an Eved, nothing belongs to him, right? A slave, nothing belongs to him. What does this teach you? Nothing belongs. Everything belongs to Hashem. What do you go and take that which is not yours? Like the rabbis, the commentaries tell us, how do you overcome lo tahmod? How do you overcome it? So they give us the example of a poor man who is a peasant, who dreams occasionally of marrying the queen, the king's daughter, the princess. It could happen, but in reality the poor peasant knows that it's impossible. It's just not possible that he could ever get his hands on the princess. In the same way, a person should feel if something does not belong to him, It's just not meant to be his. It's just too distant from me. In other words, from him being able to get his hands on that. If he would have that attitude in the same way that the peasant looks at the princess, he wouldn't dream so much of, there's a possibility I'm going to get hold of this. One of these days I'm going to win the lottery. People have all these kinds of ideas. And that is lo tahmod, of desiring and wanting that which is not yours, that which does not belong to you. One needs to feel that this thing is distant, it's not meant to be mine. I shouldn't think of it. If it's meant to be, I'll somehow get it. By being sold as an eved, he's trained. Nothing belongs to you. Just like now as an eved, nothing belongs to you. When you're not an eved, when you become free again, just remember not to covet that which does not belong to you. Everything belongs to Hashem. If he wants to give it to you, he will give it to you. If he does not want to give it to you, it's not meant for you to have it. So this is an important experience. It's not a prison term where he sits and looks at the walls. It's a learning experience. He has 6 years to reflect on what is happening with him. And hopefully this is to help him with his problem of lo tahmod. Okay, next area in Parashat Mishpatim is a fascinating area. And that is the area where an individual kills somebody by accident. Horeg bishgaga. What would they call it today's jargon? Manslaughter, I think, right? Manslaughter. He did not do it intentionally. He was, there's two typical situations. One is he's chopping wood, and a piece of the wood flies off the tree and kills someone. That's shgaga. Then there is another situation of where he's going up the ladder or coming down the ladder. Depends. One is closer to kashiyah than the other. One is closer to being negligent than the other. In any event, the ladder broke, and he fell on someone and killed him. Fell on top of somebody and he killed him. What? Yeah. Especially in the case where he was going up the ladder and he fell down, which would be closer to being negligent than if he would be coming down the ladder and then he fell. Complete negligence, then he does not go to Galut, to the Arei Milah, to the cities of refuge. If it's intentionally and there are witnesses and he was warned, then he gets the death penalty, right? But if one of those conditions are missing, he did it intentionally, there's no witnesses, there's no warning, he doesn't get the death penalty, and he doesn't go to Arei Milah. Hashem takes care of him. Betin does not have jurisdiction over him. Here we're dealing with a case where it was totally unintentional and it was not negligent either. Let me read to you the pasuk. Alright, ואשר לא צדה, והאלוהים עינה לידו, ושמתי לך מקום אשר ינוס שמה. If he did not intend to kill the man, or if Hashem עינה לידו, Hashem put it into his hand. In other words, Hashem brought it about. ושמתי לך מקום אשר ינוס שמה. I will put a place for you to run to, a city of refuge. So we're talking about a person that was killed b'shgaga. The Gaon of Vilna says, if you read this pasuk, you will notice that there's two types of shgagot here. One is ashelot sada, he did not intend it to be. He was chopping wood, that was my example, right? The second example that the pasuk uses is Vailohim inale yado. Hashem made it happen. Now, the two of them, what they have in common is shgaga. It's not his fault, it wasn't intentional. In the first case, the Gaon of Vilna says, Vashelot sada, he could have been a little bit more careful. Nevertheless, he should have looked around. Is there anybody around when he's chopping the wood? Sometimes you can do something to prevent an accident. Nevertheless, it's still considered a shgaga, it still goes to Arei Miklat. But the second one is interesting. The Gaon of Vilna says, what does it mean by Elohim inali yado? That is the typical example of one falling off the ladder. Why do these things happen? Why does the Torah says that Hashem is involved? Hashem made it happen. Otherwise, nothing happens. Nothing happens for no reason by itself. So this is the secret, one of the secrets of Gilgulei Neshamot, of reincarnation. In other words, the fact that this man fell on someone else and killed him, the one who was sitting in the bottom, is not so simple. What happened? The man that was sitting in the bottom, in a previous life, killed somebody intentionally. And there were no witnesses. And what does he deserve in the previous life? He deserves the death penalty. But there were no witnesses. Hashem brings him back now, and this time he will be killed because of what he deserves. The first man, the one who falls, in the previous life he also killed somebody, bishgaga, but there were no witnesses. Hashem brings these two together and makes this one fall on the other one, and this time there will be witnesses. So the one who fell will go to where he belongs, to the Arei Miklat, to get he needs a tikkun. The one that got killed needed to be killed because that is his tikkun for what he did in the previous lifetime.
It could be also before tikkun. It happened in
Right. V'asher lo tzada could be in the first time around. That's v'asher lo tzada, the Gaon of Vilna says. Asher lo tzada does not have the words v'Elohim mina liyado, that God put it into his hand. Yeah. V'asher lo tzada means that he did not intend it to happen. Nevertheless, he should have been a little more careful. It could happen the first time around that he killed somebody by accident.
And he doesn't go nowhere, and he's not punished.
No, in this case, we're talking about that if somebody does see, he will go to a city of refuge.
I'll go back to the latter one.
Well, the latter one is, on that the Gaon of Vilna says, the Pasuk says, V'Elohim mina liyado, that Hashem made it happen.
Yeah.
Why is it? Because of a previous lifetime.
But it could be also, the guy killed somebody, nobody saw him nothing.
Yeah, exactly. It could also be in a previous situation. That's true. Yeah. כן. שיש עניין של גלגול נשמות כשהבן אדם לפעמים נהרג, זה יכול להיות מגלגול עובר, שאז לא היו עדים ולא היה אפשר להרוג אותו בבית דין, ועכשיו מגיע הזמן שלו, כשמישהו אחר נופל עליו בשגגה. זה שנפל בשגגה היה אמור ללכת לערי מקלט, מסיבה שהוא גם הרג בשגגה פעם, בגלגול שעבר, אבל אף אחד לא ראה אותו. אז הוא מביא אותם ביחד, זה שחייב בגלות. נופל הפעם על זה שחייב מיתה. מבין? ועכשיו יש עדים. אז העדים יגידו שזה הרג בשגגה והוא ילך לערי מקלט, וזה שנהרג. מגיע לו מה שמגיע בגלל הגלגול שעבר. Okay. That is the idea of what is happening over here. That ultimately, even though it's a shgaga, it's very possible that Hashem orchestrated this to happen in such a way that each one would get what he deserves. Okay. Next mishpat. Next mitzvah is that we'll talk about is the prohibition of taking ribit, charging interest. This is a very serious avon for a person to charge interest. Torah wanted Jews to help each other, to do chesed, to be kind, to help out when somebody needs help. Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted to instill in us midat harachmanut, to have pity and to be merciful of others, and gave us many mitzvot, that the common denominator of them, is that it instills in us rahmanut. You see, for example, somebody's animal overloaded, right? And it cannot pick itself up. You have to help the animal. Even though it's an animal, it's not a human being. Well, in this case, it also happens to belong to human beings, so you're helping both of them, right? To unload, reload, and help them. The person charges interest on a loan, he's not doing a favor to this man who is giving money, he's doing himself a favor. Right? Reuven lends Shimon, you need $1,000? Gladly. Here, 12% interest. Who is doing who a favor? Shimon is doing Reuven a favor. In other words, he's making money on this, it's business. Now, if it's a large amount of money, like $100,000, $200,000, and Shimon needs it for business, not to marry off his daughter, not to survive, he needs it because he wants to start a business, then you can do something called Heter Iska. Heter Iska is that there is a document that the two can fill out. It's an agreement, or a sort of partnership, that they both share the profit. So that interest is like a profit. It's not exactly interest, but it has to be worded in such a way that it doesn't appear to be a rebit. Now rebit, there's various types of rebit. There's something called avat rebit, the dust of rebit. In other words, it's not as serious, but it's also not acceptable. Let's say somebody gave you a loan for free, no rebit, no interest, right? He helped you out. You come back to repay the loan. You bring his wife flowers, asur. Makes no difference. Makes no difference. You do not give more than what you took.
No, the flower is much less. $5.
Makes no difference. Amount doesn't make a difference. It's like you don't give. This is a form of relief.
So what do you say? You got $5.
No. You say thank you very much, but I can't accept the flower. Give them to your wife. Yeah. Yeah, but if it's not a gemilut chesed, if it's not that he needs food, or he needs immediate money to pay his rent, if it's some money that he will use for his business, he needs to buy more, he needs to expand, right? Then you can you do something called heter iska. It all depends on the situation. In that kind of a case where a person needs desperately the money and it's not for an investment or for business, you can't charge interest. What? Then if you know that chance exists that he will not pay you back, then don't give it to him, unless you don't mind. If you give a small amount, you can have in your mind ani mochelo, I forgive him, kapara. If he doesn't give it, that's fine. But never give an amount that you will regret later on if he doesn't give it back to you. It was a heter iska. If you arrange it with this document where the amount of money that's being lent is a form of business, it's not just for an immediate chesed.
You could do that directly.
The bank has an heter iska. For example, the Israeli banks need to have a heter iska for the interest that they pay you for the money that you deposit in the bank. No, yesh heter iska. Yes. Right. That's different.
That's fine. So I'm allowed to change. I'm allowed to do.
Yeah, but it all depends on the circumstance. It all depends on the situation. What is the money being used? A Jew is not allowed to charge interest to Jew unless it's in the form of a right. Unless
if he doesn't know he's a Jew,
there's a prohibition for the one that lends the money to charge interest. Makes no difference. Okay, if it's a non-Jew, there's no problem. You're allowed to charge interest. You're allowed to charge. You're allowed to pay interest. So if it's a non-Jew, you're allowed to charge. Why? Because they charge you. That is the reason why we are allowed to charge goyim. Since they charge us, we are allowed to charge them. There was once a rabbi, I believe, who was asked, why do we, I guess I'll leave it for later, when we talk about shohad, bribery.
We have another somebody buys.
Yeah. Why? Yeah.
Very minute. Maybe, I don't know, maybe cancel yourself out.
Yeah.
So he's a part owner?
He's a part owner and they're using the money.
In other words, the bank is buy shares, and they're going to use that.
Yeah, but in those cases of large institutions, if it's a Jewish institution, they have a heter, then you're not aware of it.
Because you know Jewish,
you're not doing it directly. As long as you're not doing it directly, you don't have that prohibition. Unless you are already aware of a particular case, then it could be. Anyway, there's a lot of halachot, repeat, what constitutes repeat, what constitutes interest and what's not. And you have to be careful with it, because it is a tremendous big avon to charge interest. The Torah here is trying to instill in us the opposite midah, the midah, the character of tzedakah, of chesed, and here the person is defeating that by charging interest. What?
I can turn back to the guy that I can't accept.
Is he Jewish?
Yeah, my good friend. He borrowed money.
Yeah, don't take it. Yeah. Yeah.
One for Timothy, you see, but he's going to bring me 2 nice shirts.
Because you lent him money. If he buys you something for the holiday, it's different.
The money for
makes no difference. Yeah. We don't take anything for doing a favor. It's a form of rebbe. Okay, the next mitzvah, important mitzvah in Parashat Mishpatim, is Achrei Rabim Le'atod. Then when we are in doubt, we go after the majority. Right? We have doubts. We have a safek. So you have a court. If it's in the court, you have one person says this way, the other person says this way. Right? 2 against 1. That's called a rov. Okay. If it was to release somebody, in other words, that he's patur, in the case of, for example, if they're trying somebody for, if they're going to release him, all you need is 1 for the majority. The majority has to be 2 more if it's lechayev oto, if you're going to put him to death. You make it more difficult. The idea of Achrei Rabim Le'atot is that the majority always has power, on condition that they're all similar weight. We're talking about all rabbis. They're all familiar with the halakha. right? And there's a doubt, the majority has the power. This din of majority is also true in the Chot HaAruvot. In the Chot HaAruvot, let's say you have 2 kosher hot dogs that got mixed up with a non-kosher hot dog. You don't know which one is not the non-kosher one. You're allowed to eat them. It's batel v'rov.
No kasher, no hazir.
One second, it makes no difference the hazir or the pil. Whether it makes no difference. There is something called bitul v'rov. It's nullified in the majority. Now, there are halachot that say you shouldn't eat all 3 together at the same time. Why? Because then you're for sure eating the one that's tarif. So you eat one at a time. Okay? But there is inyan shel bitul. Now this was a simple example. Let me give you a more difficult example. Let's say you have 1 piece of non-kosher meat in the midst of 100 ton of kosher meat. Are you going to throw the whole thing out? You have to have the din of bitul that says that it's batel. Bitul b'shishim is because of the flavor of the time. Let's say somebody pours a little bit of milk into the hamid, into the cholent. Then that's because we're dealing with flavor now, because it's liquid form. You need to have an amount of 60 against whatever fell inside to nullify the flavor. So that's also bitul, but that bitul is powerful for a different reason. It actually dissipates the flavor. You can't feel it anymore. But with yavesh, dvarim yaveshim, you have a kosher candy. Somebody threw a kosher candy into a jar full of kosher candy. Non-kosher, a candy which is not kosher, tarif, into a jar of many kosher candy. What are you going to do now? It's batel. It's nullified. Right. It is as though it does not exist. It loses its status. It's a very interesting thing. No, because I say it's an interesting thing because you think, here is taref, what are you going to do? Well, it's very easy to throw away 3 hot dogs. Because all it is 3 hot dogs. But what are you going to do if you have 25,000 hot dogs, right? And 1 package of non-kosher, so you can't recognize, it's all the same. You're going to throw the whole thing away, you can't. So you have to have a din of bitul. The achrei rabim lehatot is a unique din, mitzvah, that applies not only to a court, where you judges are deciding you go after the majority, but also to non-kosher food with kosher food. In the Chot HaAruvot, if they get mixed up. No, in other words, the case of the hot dog is a very simple case. You may say, well, what's the big deal? 3 hot dogs I can afford to throw away. You might say that on your own. But you wouldn't say that when we're dealing with thousands of tons of food, right? So we need to have a din, a halakha, that tells us, what do we do if there's a mix that got mixed up? You don't need to, that's what I'm saying. You don't need to throw it out. Even with the hot dog, you wouldn't need to throw it out. But you on your own might say, you know what, I'd rather not eat it. It's up to you. You don't need to. But what I'm saying is, you could easily say, you know what, I'm going to throw the whole thing in the garbage. You would only say that if it's a small amount, candy or hot dog. But you would not say that so fast if you're dealing with large amounts.
You have a whole jar of candy.
Yeah.
And one of them is not kasher. You don't go to throw the whole candy.
Exactly. You don't recognize it anymore. They're all the same. What are you going to do? So it's batel v'rov. It's nullified. If you want to throw it away, you can throw it away, but you don't need to. All right. There was a rabbi, I think it was Rav Jonathan Eibschitz, when he was a child. He was a very smart boy. He was known as a genius. And the king once invited him to the palace to test him. And he tested him and he saw how smart he was. And he asked the rabbi when he was a young boy, tell me, you're a smart boy. In your Torah it says, achrei rabim lehatot. You're supposed to follow the majority. We are the majority, he says, the Christians. Why don't the Jews follow us? Huh? So the boy answered, Your Honor, you don't understand the mitzvah. Achrei rabim lehatot, that we're supposed to follow the majority, is only when you have a doubt. We have no doubt. If you have a doubt, yeah, a little boy. If you have a doubt, then what do you do? Oh, we have no doubt. Exactly. The pasuk also adds in that area of achrei rabim lehatot, al tashet yadcha im rasha. Don't put your hand with a rasha. In other words, don't go give false testimony. Don't associate yourself with a rasha. I saw a commentary explain that the Satan is always mekatek, is always accusing the Jews about what they do. When a person goes ahead and speaks lashon hara and accuses another Jew of doing it, he's putting his hand together with the Rasha. In other words, he's associating himself together with the Satan. One has to be very careful, therefore, not to associate with bad people. You're becoming part of him. You are lending support. In the same way, when a person speaks Lashon Hara, he's lending support to the Satan himself. That's what he does all the time. He's accusing. And Lashon Hara is a form of accusation. So one has to be very careful with. Okay, next mitzvah is the prohibition of taking bribes. The Pasuk says, "V'shochad lo tikach, ki hashochad ya'aver yitchem yisalep divrei tzadikim." You should not take bribes, because the bribe will blind even those who are smart, and it will corrupt even the words of the righteous. What you have here is tikhem and tzadikim. Even if a person is smart and he can figure out who's the one that's cheating, who's the one that's lying, if he was bribed, he may lose his mind. In other words, he may not have a balanced viewpoint anymore. And misalef divrei tzadikim, it corrupts the words even of those who are just and upright. The righteous, they're tzadikim. Nevertheless, by having taken a bribe, they will have an inclination, perhaps, towards that individual who bribed them. There was once a rabbi who was on his way to court, while on his way to the Beit HaKnesset, and one of the members of the community saw him and says, "Rabbi, good morning, how are you doing? Nice to see you." I don't remember if he shook his hand or didn't shake his hand. Afterwards, the rabbi found out that the first case that morning was with this man who said hello to him. He said, "I'm sorry, I'm not taking the case." That good morning, that giving the hand, or how are you, is already a form of bribery. Yeah, because he smiled, he said hello. He was already affected and influenced by the man's action. This mitzvah is in a way a continuation of Parashat Yitro. In Parashat Yitro, Moshe was told what kind of judges to choose. Remember what the qualities of a judge are? Sonei batza, Yirei Elokim, that they hate money. They don't need the money. They don't care for the money. They're God-fearing. If a person has a desire for money, he wants to become rich, if that's one of his goals in life, then he will not make a good judge. Because he's affected by this. He might... what? Yeah. There was once a rabbi who was asked by a non-Jewish judge, I think it was, "Why do the Jews bribe us? Aren't you not supposed to bribe? And aren't you not supposed to accept bribes and not to bribe? How come we always see Jews that are trying to bribe us?" So he says, "You guys hate us. You are anti-Semites. And when we go before you, our chances are slim to win in a case against a non-Jew. So at least when we pay a bribe, we hope that your views will be more balanced now." So that bribe is in order to balance, right? To make things a little normal. Right?
Why do they accept it?
So why do they accept it? Because it's up.
Sure.
It's up. Yeah. No, it doesn't have to be poor. In other words, a person who does not emphasize money, he's not materialistic, right? He's not after money. No, obviously it's the same issue, to give or to receive. But the ones who are on the receiving end are usually the judges, so they are the ones that are, be careful not to, because it will for sure affect the outcome of the deed. זה לא חיוב, לא מצווה. אבל אני אמרתי שהרב הסביר את עצמו למה הוא נתן, כדי להוריד קצת את האנטישמיות.
But when it says you're talking about the reason why you shouldn't drink stuff, you're judge.
Right.
When you're giving up food,
not you, but you're bringing about an avon. You're causing it. You're causing the individual. Right? There's an isur of you're being the cause to this. There was a rabbi, I think, in Tunisia, who, towards the end of his life, as he was getting older, he turned, and there was a rumor that he probably took shochad, because whoever takes shochad eventually or can become blind as a punishment. So there was a rumor about this great rabbi. Oh, he's blind. He must have taken a shochad with them. You know how rumors spread? Some people have nothing to do a whole day except to talk. That's all they do. So the rabbi heard about this rumor, and he went into the Bet Midrash, began crying and praying to Kadosh Baruch Hu. Kadosh Baruch Hu, you know the truth. If it's true that I took shochad, then let me remain blind. I accept it. But if it's totally untrue, then let your name be sanctified and let the world see the truth that I never took any. And he recovered. Kadosh Baruch Hu heard his prayer. He completely recovered. And everybody saw the miracle and saw that. Yeah. The problem with shochad is that it affects a person in ways that he doesn't realize sometimes. There was another rabbi who knew before he went to the case that this man that was going to sit before him is lying. But once he sat down to hear the case, he somehow felt that this man was right. And he said to himself, "What's going on with me? Before I entered the room, I felt or I knew that he was lying, and now I somehow sympathized with him. He could have figured this out, so he took a break. Says, this is nothing. Something is not right here. He took a break. He went into the other room and started thinking. In the meantime, he put his hand in his pocket and says, "What's this?" He puts his hand in his pocket and he sees money. It turns out that man slipped some cash into the rabbi's pocket without the rabbi realizing. Look at how far the shochad went. Even he did not see it in his hand. It was in his pocket. Somehow it was already affecting him. I have no explanation for this. That's the story. That's how it's incredible. It affects the mind of the judges in an incredible way. All right, the last nekudah that we're going to speak about is what follows. That is the only mitzvah in the Torah that the Torah tells us to stay away from it at all costs. Anybody know what that is? There's only one place in the Torah that the Torah says, stay away from it altogether. What? What is that? Falsehood, yeah. Midvar sheker terhak. Altogether, stay away completely from falsehood. Rav Moshe Feinstein, Zecher Tzaddik Levacha, was so sorry that he had to lie once in his life. In that time that he needed to lie, it was okay, it was permissible to save his life. He had to smuggle himself out of Russia somehow. He needed to say something which was not exactly accurate. He still felt sorry. He felt bad he did it. Sheker is a terrible midah, because it's the opposite of emet. And the rabbis tell us that the best midah for a person to possess that will bring him to teshuvah is if he speaks the truth. Therefore, what do you see from that? That the opposite is true with sheker. The person always lies. He lies to himself. He starts believing in his lies too. And there is a saying in Italian, I think they took it from us, that a liar, even when he speaks the truth, they don't believe him. That's the punishment. That is the punishment of a liar. Even when he speaks, they stop believing him. Huh? Yeah. So anyway, this is a terrible midah. So the Torah says at all costs. And that is why it's important for a father, a mother, to deliver.
Husband and wife.
No, but besides husband and wife, is to deliver what they promise. If they tell a child, we're going to buy you something, if you do this, they better buy him. They shouldn't train him that it's okay to promise and not to deliver, and to lie. The Gemara tells us the story of a city that had a special merit. Everybody lived very, very long. They had arichut yamim. And when they investigated why this was the case, is because they never spoke lies. The name of the city was Pushta. Pushta means emet in Arabic. They always spoke only the truth. Nobody ever lied. And Zahu, as a result of that, they merited to live long. There was once an individual who moved into that city. And I think if I recall the story correctly, this is what happened. His wife was once combing her hair, taking care of herself. And the neighbor came to speak to her, and he said she's not around, which is a lie. He could have said she's not available, she's doing something, but he was embarrassed to say what she was doing. As a result of that, his kids died. They died young. They died young. And this was an unusual situation in a city where nobody died young. Everybody's achal arichut yamim. So when the people heard in the town that they heard what happened, they drove him out of town. So we don't want you around us. Out of a small lie, this affected, because he was in such a holy place in a city where nobody spoke a lie. He said a small lie that brought about, unfortunately, the tragedy in his family. You have to be very careful. Right?
How much do you say?
Yeah. You don't tell. I'm sorry. You don't tell him. Right. Obviously, those kids must have had a tikkun from a previous gilgul too. Hashem, who knows the future, would not have put that situation those kids into this situation, unless obviously they needed a tikkun themselves. Or it could be, of course, that sometimes kids suffer. Hashem eventually needs to bring them back because they did not deserve to die. things can happen, acts can occur. But in the majority of cases, everything is mechushav, everything is calculated from above. Yes?
You don't want to embarrass somebody else.
Yeah.
You don't want to embarrass that person or that person.
No, just I can't say. You have to be very careful to say the truth. I'll give you an example of something which is permissible. There was a rabbi, the brother of the Gaon of Vilna, who once came with another rabbi to see a friend of theirs, another rabbi. This rabbi who they came to visit was very, very poor. And he invited them, come eat with me. Please, eat. And this rabbi, the brother of the Vilna Gaon, said, I'm sorry, the doctor told me I can't eat this food. And they left. So the second rabbi asked him, is that true that you're sick, you can't eat this food? He says, no. No? I mean, how could you lie? He says, you don't understand. I was referring to the Rambam. He was a doctor. And the Rambam writes that one should not eat from a seudah she'ena maspeket leba'alea. One should not eat in somebody's home when he knows that the host does not have enough food to feed himself. So that doctor gave me those instructions not to eat from this food. So he said it in such a way where it was not a lie. That is permissible. What? What? You have to be very careful. Yeah. Yeah.
You said to me, how much did you pay for this, You can tell me a price higher.
You have to be very careful, nevertheless. You have to be careful. It says midbar sheket tirhak. It doesn't say with who, when, and how. Tirhak, you have to be at all costs. Unless there are situations where you're forced, perhaps, to say something which is not accurate. But you have to be very careful. For example, there's a halakha that you're not allowed to say, if a guy asks you, are you Jewish? You can't say, no, I'm not. That's mamash asur. It's a chilul Hashem. So you have to be careful. Sakanat nefashot is a mashu acher. If your life is in danger, it's something else. But even so, in the case of goy, you can't say, I'm not. He asks you, are you Jewish? Am I Jewish? Do I look like I'm a Jew? Right, that's not a... You didn't say a lie.
My boss went to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And they are asking the Jews to say I'm a Muslim.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Let me just finish with this point that midat haemet is just the opposite of sheker. Sheker brings all sorts of trouble. Midat haemet brings all sorts of good things. First of all, if a person admits, if he says the truth, that midah will bring him closer to teshuvah. He admits his mistakes, he admits his faults. He'll have shalom bayit for his wife. He'll have peace at home. He's always admitting. He's always saying the truth. There was once an individual who was a thief. He committed many crimes, and he wanted to do teshuvah. So he took it upon himself to say only the truth. One day he was going to do an avirah. He just couldn't hold himself back. So a friend of him saw him. Hey, where are you going? Where are you going? He had to say the truth, because he's not saying a lie. And as a result of revealing where he was going, he didn't do what he was trying to do. So through the midat of emet, one is able to reach teshuvah shelema.